public relations. Is there a hashtag I stand with Anastasia? I stand with Mark McGowan. I stand with Stephen Marshall. No. Listen, mate. If brains were taxed, you'd get a refund. This is not the time for you to be interjecting, brother. I think you should just calm down and listen. Because at this point in time, the state is on its knees. And the weapon-grade idiocy we get from people like this, I don't even know where you're the member for, but I'm sure you won't be there next time. But what I do know, Mr. Speaker, is that this state is on its knees. And the morons we get in this government who blame everyone else, they blame Victorians. They blamed hospital workers. They tried to blame the federal government. They even tried to blame overseas governments. They blame everyone but themselves. Take some responsibility for what is happening in this state, for what they're doing to our children, to our elderly. Take some responsibility. We say to the Premier, no. Oh, no. He's more interested in what he tweets. He's more interested in what he puts on Facebook. Because for the Premier of this state, it's about him. The whole show's about him. His government's about him. It's not about them. These backbenchers and co, they're passengers. It's all about him. It's always ever been about him. It's not about anyone else. And that is the problem we have in Victoria, that the Premier of the state today sees this all about him and his legacy and his image. And that's why we've got a problem that we do, because he wouldn't accept support from the federal government when it was offered, because that would not be befitting with his masculinity to say, oh, no, I'll take someone else's help, because it's all about him, because Dan the man can solve everything he thinks. And solve it he did not. Create a problem he did, that we're all paying for, that our economy will pay for decades. The megalomania, the egomaniac, the grab for power, all this stuff would leave General Stroessner in Paraguay or Erich Honecker in East Germany proud, because it's crazy. There still has not been a single reason uttered in this parliament why we need to give a mid-range health official the ability to shut the parliament down. No one has walked in here and said, this is the reason why. We're operating quite fine today under strict conditions. We have question time today under strict conditions. The media can report this parliament under strict conditions. Why do we need to shut the place down? We need to shut the place down because the Premier of the day does not want an opposition. He wants an audience, because it's all about him. It's all about his ego. It's always ever been about his ego. And the pastors on his backbench just blindly follow like the sheep they are, at the expense of Victorians, at the expense of our economy, our mental health, our children's future, the deaths of hundreds of elderly people. But the Labor Party couldn't care less, because it's all about them. It's all about their image. This bill will do nothing to help solve a COVID crisis in Victoria. This bill does nothing to help solve it. All this bill does is allow the Premier to bully yet another departmental official into shutting down yet another form of criticism upon him. And this is what bullies do. They shut down anyone else criticising or questioning their point of view. We've seen that with this guy for now nearly 6 years. Where do we need to start? From the CFA, from volunteers, from school kids. Ask Minister Foley. I mean, any criticism. These people just shut it down. This is yet another example of that. Why do we give a mid-range bureaucrat the power to shut the parliament down? What a ridiculous idea. The parliament sat during the Blitz in London, but it can't sit with social distancing operations in Melbourne 2020. That's because it's all about Andrews. It's all about his ego and the preciousness of the man that he might get questioned. It's no wonder, for the first time seriously in nearly 6 years, his own backbencher openly saying, we wish he'd go. I don't think they're alone. So who's going to inherit the smoking ruin that he's going to bequeath them? Because it will be a smoking ruin. Kane and Kerner demolished the economy. This guy's demolished the economy, confidence, people's health, people's lives. He's going to leave as a legacy, not level crossings. he's going to leave the greatest public health catastrophe in Australia's history that demolished 2.5 decades of economic confidence. Will he leave it for Jacinta? Will he leave it for Martin if he gets the shaver out? Will he leave it for Jill, or will he leave it to James Merlino? Whoever he leaves for, he couldn't care, because it's not about them or Labor or their legacy. It's always been about the Premier and his trades hall buddies. That is why we're in the mess we're in. I oppose this bill. I oppose giving this Premier, his hopeless ministers and his weapon-grade failure of a government any more power. Yeah.